What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey and welcome to another miniature rescue. This week, we take a look at a bunch of used models I have lying around and try and build some Spearhead armies to actually play in a game. I've been collecting all sorts of Warhammer models over the last few years, and while I have a few put together playable armies, I also have tons of parts and pieces that aren't complete enough to really make anything. The idea has always been to find used models and put together sweet armies for less, and now that the new edition of Age of Sigmar has a new mode of play, I feel like there's an entirely new avenue to explore for getting models onto the table quickly in order to play a meaningful game. Up until now, Warcry has been pretty much that for me. And while that will likely continue to be an outlet for smaller model count warbands, having an in-between means that we can go a little bigger and get models that may not have been available in something smaller like a skirmish game. Right now, I don't know if Spearhead is worth playing. I haven't played a game yet, and for all I know, it's hot garbage. But I've been asked by more people in the last few weeks if I've played Spearhead than I have about any other game type that's come out in the last few years. So it's probably something worth looking at. Right now, Spearhead is meant to be played with pre-selected warbands, specifically models from the Vanguard boxes and now appropriately called Spearhead boxes. Rules come in those boxes and can also be downloaded for free on the Warhammer community page, which I think is pretty neat. I have gone ahead and downloaded all of them just in case, and at the bottom of each of these War Scroll PDFs are the Spearhead cards. There's also a list of units on that first card, so that's a good place to start in terms of looking through models I own and trying to build these armies. So let's start collecting models and see how this goes. So the idea is that I'm going to go through all the boxes I have, a bunch of different things in my cabinets, and compare those to the Spearhead boxes that are on sale on the GW site, and put together as much as I possibly can. Now, there's a couple of opportunities here. There's a lot of used models that I have that fit into these, so there are projects that we can work on the channel, which is really exciting. I like to do that, and there's a good reason to do that, to actually get them on the table to play a game. The second thing is getting together proxies, specifically from one-page rules. It's usually what I've been printing, or at least lately, but lots of different models from companies like that have models that are close enough that can fit in. So you can get the rules for free, you can get the cards for free. The board size is pretty standard, and we can play fun games without having to do too much extra work and investment, especially if you already have things laying around. So let's go and check out the cases, put some stuff on the table, and go through all the different projects that we can possibly do right now. So I've laid out a ton of models on this table, and to the best of my ability, I've gathered up 9 potential Spearhead armies. Now, I have more in boxes, but I don't really want to build all of them right now. The 2 that came in the Scaventide box, I'm still counting, because at least I put the time into getting everything from that box assembled and ready to be painted. So you could say I gathered 7 full armies, but that felt a little unfair. Paring it down even more, there are 2 armies in here that are 3D printed from one-page rules. I have a decent number of vampire and undead models printed and primed, and they're definitely a good fit for the boxes on the official site. So I'm pretty excited about that. Technically, I have just about enough to use GW models for both of these, but they're only about half completed, and I need the proxies anyway, so figured it would look more aesthetically pleasing just using models from the same range. There are 2 armies in particular that I am excited to put paint on. The Fyreslayers, which has a surprisingly small model count, and the Gloomspite Gits, which has an equally surprising higher model count. Both of these armies are ones that I have worked on and purchased quite a bit of used models for. So they are in a pretty desperate state and need to be fixed up and repainted in order to get them onto the table. My thought for now is to get at least one army up and running in order to play a few games and check out whether or not Spearhead is even worth playing. And since I have a good variety of armies, I feel like I can try out a few of them even if they aren't fully finished, and see how a few of them end up feeling. I also like the idea of having those 3D printed proxies because I really can just get a feel, and if I want different models, those options are there. The one I'm actually the most excited to play are the Blades of Khorne. I generally like the mechanics that Khorne armies have, and I'm very happy to say that the Spearhead box comes with 10 Blood Warriors, which is one of my favorite units from Age of Sigmar in general. I have a combination of more recently painted models and some that I painted when I got back into Warhammer after a really long break. So it's an interesting looking mix of models that shows some progress from where I started painting, and I love seeing that on the table. This week, my goal is to start taking care of the issues with a few armies and try and finish at least one to be played by the weekend that this comes out. Let's just start getting to work and kind of see how it goes. After cleaning off my desk a little bit, I'm going to start by tackling a small issue with the Khorne army. First, the Blood Warriors that I painted a while ago are on the wrong base sizes, so I need to swap those out for something similar to the rest of the army. For some reason, when I built these, I put them on 40mm round bases, which I remember thinking at the time were pretty large for these models, and they really are. They're supposed to go on 32s. The models get cut away from the larger bases, and then I start taking care of a little bit of cleanup before getting them onto the new ones. Couple of the feet are sticking up off the bases and red from where I guess I decided not to paint them, so I used some black paint to cover those. Then a little super glue and these guys are on their new bases. I do need to use a little pigment powder to get these to match a little better with the other ones, but there are more bases to do before getting there, so let's take a look at the 10 Blood Reavers for the army. These could use a little touch-up paint, but for now I just want to complete the bases and get them ready to go. If Khorne feels like a fun enough army to play, then I'll go back and I'll give these a second pass. Right now, it's kind of about numbers. I want to get a couple armies ready to go, so no time to waste. PVA goes down with an old brush around all of the models, and I dip them into beach sand to get a nice texture on the bases. It's worth mentioning that the PVA I use is watered down quite a bit, so that the sand kind of soaks in and gets coated nicely. After being dipped, I just shake off the excess and wipe away any overspill from the rims. Okay, so I've put sand on all the bases so far. I've got all of the models here pretty much ready to go. These Fyreslayers, man, I've been trying to get these done for 5 years, six years, since they came out. I've been trying. It's just never really gone well with these, and I don't know why, because I really like these dwarfs. So for now, I think the idea is I'm going to get some metallics on there. I'm going to finish off their, orange fiery hair and that kind of thing. We're going to get the bases painted, and that should get them pretty much ready to go to play Spearhead. As far as the other models, the Khorne army is just about there. If I can finish the bases on all of the Blood Reavers, they just have sand on them right now, because I never did the bases on these. I did the ones on the other ones, and obviously we just replaced the kind of garbage snow bloody bases that I made, when AOS came out, with these 3D printed ones that I've been using. I didn't want to rebase all the Blood Reavers for now. The sand, it's PVA and sand, and that comes off pretty easily if you need it to. So I'm not too worried about that right now. I don't really have time. I'm actually planning on going to play a game tomorrow as I'm talking. So I'm trying to just get these on the table ready to hopefully, I'll probably end up using the Khorne army, and then I'm going to set up another game and we'll try the Fyreslayers out and just kind of see if we can get a feel for this game. I just watched an Eons of Battle video. Jay was talking about how much he really likes Spearhead, so that actually got me even more excited. It's kind of cool. So I'm gonna just continue to paint these Fyreslayers. We'll get the bases done, and we'll see where we're at. Normally, I would prime the models with either a rattle can or an airbrush to lock in that sand layer, but putting on some primer with a brush will do just as well. The Fyreslayers are in a much worse state. They've all been sitting kind of half painted since they came out, and I have tried a few times to get them onto the table with very little success. These are actually the first models that I ever tried to use an airbrush on, so they've been sitting for a while. A couple of years ago, I tried changing things up with the color scheme, and it felt good for a little while, but I only ended up painting a handful of models and then putting them back on the shelf to work on something else. This time, I'm ready. I know what I want, and I'm gonna get that done. The Fyreslayers have a really small model count, like I said, and I already have a huge jump start on getting these guys finished, so I'm going to go ahead and do another layer over the skin and try and clean that up. A layer of dark silver over all of the weapons and armor just to get it done. And I can come back when all of that is complete and paint the cloth on the models red. I don't want to overthink these guys because I'm afraid I won't finish them. And I want to use them sooner rather than later. It's been a long time coming. The bases for these models also haven't been touched, and since I have the PVA and sand out, I'll do the same thing for those bases and do a really straightforward dry brushed base and some grass tufts to complete them. I think in this case, and probably a lot of cases, having basically just completed models, it's a base coat, a wash, and a highlight, very simple, is just going to go a lot further than trying to do a lot with each model and make them look really cool, because I'd rather have them completed and playable and not looking half bad than in a shelf. The final touch for the Khorne army will be to bring in some orange-brown pigment powder and go over all of those new bases so that they match the other ones. Then I need to pack up some armies and get ready to see what Spearhead is all about. So I actually played a game of Spearhead yesterday, and I'm back in my office, and I have some things to report. First of all, Spearhead is actually good. It's fun, like really fun. It's kind of a weird mix of Warcry and AOS, and there's lots of things to do. There's not a ton to remember either. It's very straightforward. Scoring points is really easy, and it feels like there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of movement, which is really cool. Overall, I was pretty impressed by how easy it was to just kind of open a rulebook and go through it. I mean, it took maybe an hour and a half. Both of myself and my opponent had never played before, and we were just working it out. But I mean, even by the first round being over, we both knew what was going on, and it wasn't that difficult to just keep going. And that's pretty exciting for a game from Games Workshop, where there's lots of things to do with your units. They feel unique. You're getting points with things, you're spending points on things, you've got cards that do special things. It's really cool. So I'm definitely going to be painting more Spearhead armies. I'm going to be going down and playing more games. Huge thank you to Gigi and Mikhail for hanging out and playing some games. We went down to Comic Kingdom. That's a local store here in Reno, Nevada. Really cool store, lots of fun things to do in there. So huge shout out to those guys. And I'm just gonna get straight into working on more armies. It's almost too good to pass up at this point, which is insane to me. I honestly think this might be the most fun I've had playing Warhammer outside of something like Warcry. It's good. Now, as far as the armies go, I put together 3 armies, and I took 3 armies down, and I ended up forgetting a couple of models. The one wasn't so bad. I could just proxy another model, although I didn't end up using it, the Sylvaneth army. There are a couple of proxies in here anyways. The one that sucked was the Fyreslayers. Like, for some reason, I looked at it and I thought, oh, I've got all the models that I need, but in reality, I don't. I needed 10 more Berserkers, and I have them, but I don't have them finished. I finished all the models I had, except for those, for some reason. So that kind of sucked a little bit. I mean, I could have proxied in, some Chaos models or something and made it work, but I wanted to play with them all completed. So I'm actually just gonna keep working on these and talk about Spearhead some more while I paint the rest of these models. But Spearhead's decent. It's worth it. So the big thing here is that I actually ended up with about 9 Spearhead armies, all put together, all said and done. Some of them 3D printed, which is pretty cool, but a lot of models that I just had, in the case. Stuff that I bought over the years, and it just happens that they're included in the Vanguard or the Spearhead box. And I think that's really cool. It's like I've been building small collections here and there, and it turns out, oh, guess what? You can use these in a game. And that's pretty cool. Just to already be able to use models that I have and just start playing a game. What I actually found really interesting was that my opponent in particular did the same thing. He went through his collection and found out I've got 3 Spearhead armies that I can just put together and start playing. So it was an interesting kind of thing where, you know, we're already into Warhammer, clearly. We're already into Games Workshop games, and we had models that worked with this new mode and could be used immediately to play lots of different games, you know, different matchups and that kind of thing. And it's really exciting for a lot of people who've been in for a while. And if you're new, you get something like the Skaventide box or even just the Spearhead box, and you're already playing games right away. It's pretty nice. Not normal GW. This is different. All in all, I really like Spearhead, and I'm looking forward to playing it again. I actually have finished up the Fyreslayers army and put the rest of the pieces in the Sylvaneth army, so those are 100% ready to go, painted, playable. They look cool. My main goal right now will be to find and build even more of these armies, likely from eBay lots, and see what kind of weird stuff we can do with some awesome used models. I'm actually pretty excited about that. It's gonna be fun. Until next time, thank you for joining me on another miniature rescue. If you like something about this video, please consider hitting that like button, sharing this video with your hobby friends, and subscribing for more miniature rescues. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video.